Good morning. We're live for episode 156, I think. It's 156? 156 of Trek Live. How you doing this morning, Dan?
I am doing fantastic. I'm excited to talk about some Deep Space Nine this morning.
Yeah, me too. I like it when we do these rewatch recaps for you. It's a cool way to kind of check in on your experience going through a show, capping off a big chunk of it with kind of looking at the season as a whole that you just finished. And your approach has been to do the kind of thumbs up, thumbs down, see it, skip it, kind of summary of episodes. So we're going to do that today for the third season of Deep Space Nine. We're going to put up a listing of the episodes. I'm going to sort of interview you. We're going to bounce around. We're not going to go in like chronological order. I'm going to go with the episodes that I'm most curious to talk about, but we're going to talk about all 26 of them. And I'm going to ask you for a quick, sum up of what you thought. Some episodes we'll talk about more than others. I'm sure some will generate more conversation than others, but You'll have to give me basically a thumbs up or a thumbs down, a see it or skip it. For those who are watching on video, you'll be able to see updates to that board of episodes basically as we go.
Yeah.
So looking forward to it. It's a really interesting season with some super classic, upper tier episodes of the show, in my opinion. And there are some interesting misfires, I think, too. I'm curious to kind of see if we're on the same page and where we might diverge a little bit. And I know you have a little bit of a different way of looking at what constitutes a see it or a skip it. So why don't you talk about that a little bit, maybe bring people up to speed if they haven't seen the last couple of these, where you kind of, how do you take into account if something gets a thumbs up or a thumbs down or a see it or skip it?
Yeah, I'll use a previous episode as an example. An episode in a past season called Melora, where Bill talked about misfires. I would say it's not a misfire. It's definitely middle of the road. Or another episode that comes to mind as well is Storyteller as well. Those two, I believe I put see it. And the reason why is, in the comments, you guys may be blowing me up, but there's elements in those episodes that I think is essential for someone going through Deep Space Nine. So it might just be one little clip or one little aspect of the episode. That's why it's see it. Even though it could be a middle of the road episode, even though it could be bottom tier, even there's things in the episode that I find that you have to watch, even though that the episode can be a tough watch. So if you see something like that happen in this season, then that's why you know. That's me saying, hey, there's something in this that I think is that you need to see, even though that the episode is maybe tough to get through at times. So
yeah, so there's a little bit more nuance going into this than just a thumbs up, thumbs down.
Exactly.
Really, this is how I felt about it. It's do you need to see it or do you not? So that's why we kind of go with the see it, skip it. That's really the label for us, because it's like, do you need it? Like, is there a piece of character development? Is there something with the relationships of the two characters that feels important? It feels like it moves forward the series in terms of those relationships or that character. So they're definitely. I see where you're going, and it's interesting. That's why I love doing this. Is that's a different way of kind of looking at these episodes and kind of summarizing them and putting them into sort of, in quotes, air quotes, good pile and bad pile. Like, it's not quite as simple as just good, bad. So I really enjoy these, and I'm looking forward to getting into this season for sure.
And one thing is that some of these episodes don't get a lot of airtime, and what I mean by that is not a lot of people talk about these episodes, and I think if you've watched us at least for a little bit, you know that we're more positive on Trek. So I would like to find good things in the bad stuff. So yes,
and you often can. In my opinion, I think even in some of the worst episodes that don't work for me personally, there are like little character beats, or there are moments that do work, and and I always kind of talk about, like, because I'm a fan and I love this world, I love these characters, I love the setting, I like to just be in that headspace, even when the episode's not firing on all cylinders or it might not be totally successful. I'm happy to be there. So I don't look at it through like a super critical, my arms folded, show me what you got, critic
Yeah.
Approach. That's just not my nature when I'm watching this show, these shows, the Star Trek franchise. So I get that, and this is a cool way to kind of force yourself to look at it that way instead of just a purely like objectively critical eye. It's like, well, what feels important, what feels like it's necessary for the grand scheme of things.
Yeah.
Jimmy 77's in the YouTube chat room. We're by the way, if you're watching us on either platform, we're currently live streaming on Periscope and Twitter, and on YouTube. So you can find us either way as a live stream. Yeah. And it'll be available on both as a recording. Probably easier to access on YouTube on the recording side of things, but you'll be able to find it on either for now. Jimmy 77 says, basically echoing us, like it serves and advances the plot lines. Yes, that's what we're looking for, or what you're looking for since you're labeling these episodes. Cyber Honey says season 3, the writing was starting to really get diverse. The episodes would not rely on any one character at once. Sometimes subplots were better than the main, like the A plot. Sometimes the B plot's better than the A plot. Sometimes that does happen for sure. Cool. Let's real quick. I'll just do a real quick because this is like a big rewatch recap for you. You're a little into season 4 of Deep Space Nine, correct?
Yes, I've watched 3 episodes.
Okay, yes. All right. Do we want to talk about them this morning?
We can.
Do you want to go into a little bit?
Yes.
Let's do like real quick. How are you feeling going into season 4 with?
Real quick, this run that I just went through, I had a conversation with myself saying that this is a really bold statement, but is this the best Trek is this the best Trek? And so I went The Way of the Warrior, that's a 2-parter. Then I went The Visitor, and then Hippocratic Oath is that 3rd episode. And I think there's some great variety in that. I think each one of those episodes is very different from one another, but I think are just really good stuff. So, great run. Yeah,
they are. That's a radically different. That's a really good example of like the Swiss Army knife idea that we always talk about. Episodes Trek feeling very different from each other, distinctive tones and genres. You can't get much more divergent than The Way of the Warrior. Big action, world building.
Yeah.
Grand, epic 2-hour episode. Really quiet, intimate, heavy character drama with The Visitor leaning heavily into
emotional
emotion, pathos.
Yeah,
and then Hippocratic Oath's like an ethical, dilemma that tests a friendship with O'Brien and Bashir. So yeah, really, really different episodes that set out to achieve different things, but I think all 3 are pretty darn successful. Yeah, The Visitor, which I think is like way in the upper tier, like some of the best Star Trek of all time, I think, because of how emotional it is and how deep it is. The Way of the Warriors, obviously, like, spoiler alert, I'm sure that's going to be a see it on your season 4, so because it's about as essential as it gets.
Yeah.
As far as just like teeing up what's coming for the rest of the show, really. And Hippocratic Oath is, I think, a really underrated. I think it kind of gets lost in the shuffle a little bit because it is surrounded by
greatness, yeah.
Or at least preceded by those 2 really key, huge, much discussed episodes. Really strong, really, really strong stuff. So I'm really eager to see where you think Deep Space Nine goes in the 4th season. You're really getting into the thick and thin of it now that Sisko's got the shaved head and the goatee.
Yeah.
And Worf's there, and we are you are knee deep into the sort of the Dominion is like very present at this point as a sticking their hand in the pot and really shaking things up.
Mm-hmm.
You got Klingon stuff coming with Worf being involved and the Klingon Empire going off in a crazy direction.
Yeah.
So it's it's going to be interesting. I love the fact that you're kind of rediscovering Deep Space Nine for the first time in a long time. It's been a while since you first saw it, right? So that gives you a fresh perspective.
Mm-hmm.
Then for me, I'm moving pretty slow. I'm on. I watched Pegasus, which I love. I think that's a great episode of TNG. So that's really, really strong. Great guest star with Terry O'Quinn, who's famous for Lost. He's John Locke in Lost. For those who are familiar with that show, Emmy winner, plays the Admiral. Great Riker stuff. Diving into his backstory.
Yeah, it's great.
Prior assignments. He's talking about his time as an ensign on the Pegasus, a mutiny on a Starfleet ship, and Great Romulan stuff, great score, really good music in that one, really moody, really distinctive, like unique vibes. LeVar Burton directed it, so a lot of really cool stuff with that. It's one of my favorites. And Homeward, which is sort of like the pre-Star Trek Insurrection episode. Like it's sort of the same idea. You have this, very primitive, pre-tech alien society that, for one reason or another, needs to be moved. Very different reasons in Insurrection and Homeward, but they have to use the holodeck to. There's subterfuge to try to potentially move a society from one planet to another. Yeah. So interesting. 1-2 punch there. I love the Pegasus. Obviously, Homeward's I think a little bit more of a mixed bag. I'm hoping to watch a few more today to get rocking and rolling in the back half of season 2 of Deep Space Nine and season 7 of TNG, which is where I am. So cool. All right, so let's move into the episode board portion of this with season 3 stuff. So we're gonna kind of bounce around. I'm not interested in really just kind of going from the search part 1 to the adversary. I'm gonna bounce around and kind of just see where this goes. There are episodes that I'm curious to ask you about. I'm probably gonna start off with some obvious ones that I at least know about you, just to kind of get them off the board and hear what you have to say. But I'm curious. There are some folks in the chat, Jimmy77, Cyber Honey. I know we're here. I haven't really been watching the Periscope one, but anybody who's out there, you have comments, if there are episodes on this board that stand out to you, definitely share with us, and I'm sure we will be eager to incorporate that into our discussion.
A couple things before we start. Bear with us, guys. Both of us are doing producery stuff, so it might if there's a little bit of a just a lack of conversation. And initially, we're just doing some back end stuff. And then if you're watching on the podcast feed or listening on the podcast feed, definitely appreciate that. But I think it would be better if you listened on YouTube or Periscope because you can see the actual board. So just a few housekeeping things.
We always recommend the video for especially these episodes where we have more visual components to help us along with our conversation. So, you ready?
I'm ready. So I'll ever be.
Let's do it. Let's start with the first one that just for you, and it might not be this way for everybody, but I know an episode that's like near and dear to your heart and is probably I'm assuming is an obvious see it for you is Civil Defense. Is that correct? Is that a see it for you? And what are your overall impressions of Civil Defense? Or am I wrong? Is it a skip it? I don't know.
It is a see it.
Okay.
And there's a few reasons why. And there's some bold statements I'm probably going to say here. It's probably my favorite episode of the season for a couple reasons. Well, yeah, it's my favorite of the season just because I really like this. It's got some, I've talked about it before, but it's got some outside of Trek aspects that make it my favorite. But it's a really kind of simple setup. It's kind of based on the premise of the show too. It's I feel like just a really simple setup of really separating members of the crew kind of on a away mission, and then the bridge or the ops has to kind of navigate the whole thing, but it kind of unravels and ends I think in a great way. So it's probably, I wouldn't say it's my favorite, but it's like top 1 or 2 favorite of the season, just because again the outside Trek stuff, and also just I really do love this simple setup. I love it.
Yeah, I know the story behind why it's important to you personally, and I think that's like always an interesting component to these kinds of things. Sometimes episodes carry in a little extra meaning if you saw them at an important time, or you remember watching it at an important time in your life. Yeah, that's a huge component to any TV show, any movie. I think like when you saw them, what you were doing when you saw them, what was going on in your life when you saw them, can really impact how they kind of sit in your memory. And I know Civil Defense is one that will probably be a big part of you in your like Star Trek journey for those reasons at least. But it's also I think it's a great episode on its own too, because of, like you said, it has the classic setup of like separating the crew, and they're all in like slightly different situations and paired with kind of unique putting unique pairs and in a crisis situation. There's the great Ducat Garrick stuff.
Bajorn, like I can hear this episode
as well. Workers
as well.
It's iconic at this point.
Yeah,
I think everybody's got that locked into their head forever. Gold Ducat saying Bajorn workers.
Yeah,
is
it's.
I think it's a great one. And I figured just get it off the board quick because I knew it would be. I knew it was one of your favorites. Yeah. What about knocking out some of these two-parters? Past tense, parts 1 and 2. What do you think?
Those are big see-its for me. Whoops.
Shocker.
I remember vaguely kind of what was going on in this, but it felt really fresh. It felt so just right on for what's happening right now. And I know that it's tough because Star Trek gets knocked for maybe going back to the well with time travel too much. Correct me if I'm wrong, but this is probably one of the first ones where they go back in time.
In Deep Space Nine.
In Deep Space Nine, yeah. So, a really good time. I think the episode gives everyone really something to do. It's even on the Defiant. You know, the crew is trying to save the group that's down in a different time. There's some funny things with them bouncing around in different times before. There's some really good comedic moments there. But yeah, there's this is really powerful kind of political commentary a little bit here, obviously.
Yeah.
But just all around, I think like top Trek here. This is definitely a classic for sure.
Yeah, it's aged really well. I think I like it more now than I did back then when it was new.
Yeah,
when I was very young. I think the issueness of it and the way it approaches this issue. I think what Avery Brooks gets to do, he's really got some interesting scenery to chew on and big things to play. I'm definitely a fan. Cyber Honey says not a fan. Skip it for past tense. Interesting. Love to hear it. The divergent opinions. What about The Search parts 1 and 2 to kick off the season?
Yeah.
Where are you on them?
I would say see it.
Yeah.
Because I think it really it's not. I always say building off the premise, but it's not really building off the premise. It's building off of what we've seen before. Like this is Deep Space Nine being more serialized. This is Trek being more serialized. So I think it's definitely something that you have to see.
I think you definitely have to see it because of the reveal of the changelings and obviously the big movement for Odo's character and things it sets up. It's clearly like a major jumping off point for where the show's going to go from here. Yeah. I think there's debate to be had for, how strong is it? I think we talked about that a little bit on our 2-part draft a couple of weeks ago when we hit the search. I don't remember if either of us chose it. But I think I remember both of us talking about preferring part 1 to part 2, feeling like part 2 maybe lost a little bit of steam, didn't love the final resolution.
Don't like the twist at the end.
Yeah.
Yeah, and if you guys haven't seen it, I maybe we won't talk about that. But yeah, I think definitely the first part, I prefer at least for see it. Isn't that where the Defiant gets introduced as well? Yeah. So I really like that. I like that they that's kind of a fun thing to be able to have now with the show is a ship, and a very unique one at that. So I love it, and I think just talking about the Defiant just for a little bit because I love ships.
Sure.
I think it's such a departure from what we've seen, and I think it emulates the show a little bit. This show is very, it's breaking away from what we've seen in the past, and I love that this. It's just perfect. So, yeah.
Can't argue with that. Let's go to Jimmy 77 mentioned Improbable Cause and the Dice Cast as his favorites from season 3.
Yeah.
Where are you on?
Those are Seats. I mean, come on, those. Again, that's we're getting into the serialization. I think, spoiler alert, of that back half, it starts to like pick up like that. I think it's really Deep Space Nine is really firing on all cylinders, and maybe like I like the pairing as well in the Dias cast as well, but I think again it gives everyone something to do. It feels big also, and building off the premise and kind of what we've not the premise, but backstories and
world
things,
building.
World building. It's just so good, so good.
Yeah, it's I think there's some of the best acting, some of the best performances in this season, especially but throughout Deep Space Nine. I think that Renee Auberjonois and Andrew Robinson, Odo Garrick stuff in those 2 episodes is upper tier Star Trek performances. The kind of iconic scene in the holding cell with Garrick and Odo, with Garrick kind of holding Odo's shape with that device and trying to get information from him, and is really, really powerful stuff. Really raw, really emotional. Where Odo admits that he does want to go home to not Deep Space Nine, but with his people. Like, he has that burning desire within him.
Yeah.
That's that's his contradiction. That's his constant battle with himself. His natural instinct is to want to go be with his people and kind of resolve that part of himself. But he has this conflict within him for all kinds of reasons. Kira, obviously, I think pulling him to stay on Deep Space Nine, and just knowing what the Dominion is, I think he has problems with that, obviously. So it really important character stuff for those two, but also, like you said, world building, setting up what's coming with the whole Dominion dynamic and how different species are reacting to it in the Alpha Quadrant. You have the Romulans and the Cardassians trying to sort of fight them back in their own way and protect the Alpha, this side of the wormhole. So really great stuff. What about another episode that was mentioned? Jimmy 77 also mentioned. I'm curious to hear you, because I don't think we ever really talked about it. Is Visionary, the O'Brien sort of jumping forward in time paradox episode.
Yeah, it's isn't there another similar episode? Maybe Distant Voices?
Distant Voices is right after it. That's a Bashir, kind of like mind-bendy, kind of hallucinatory, wacky premise.
Yeah.
So let's do them both. I'm curious, because we didn't really talk about either one of them on like our rewatch recaps or anything. So I don't know your thoughts on the see it, skip it level, or just on the how did you like them quality kind of level as well.
They're Seats for me, both of them. I like Visionary. It's just a fun, really. I think it's a simple, like, you get to stay on the station, but it's a fun, really sci-fi concept, and I think sometimes one thing that maybe lacks in Deep Space Nine is the sci-fi-ness of it. I think when people think Deep Space Nine, they think of character drama and these grandiose, character dramas and these big battles and things like that. But we sometimes we don't get these. I mean, we get it with Past Tense, obviously, with some sci-fi stuff. But I think Distant Voices, in particular, Visionary.
Both of them really.
Both of them really.
Visionary especially.
But
it's very much like a TNG-esque kind of timey-wimey, crazy.
Yeah, it's definitely out there, and I think the twist at the end to let the other O'Brien come back, I think is cool, and I think it really fits that character with just O'Brien being really, I mean, he's, yeah. So I like both of them actually. I think they're similar in some regards, but I think it's kind of a cute way in Distant Voices to be like, okay, the station is Bashir's body and things like that. And we get to, it's definitely really twisty turny, and really makes you think, and it's
mind bendy, very much in the. It feels like almost like something Brandon Braga would have come up with. On the Next Generation, especially when his kind of
Minosky,
MO is to come up with those kinds of, or Joe Minosky. I think Minosky might have even been. I don't know if he wrote Distant Voices. I don't know. It seems like something one of those guys would come up with for sure.
Yeah.
Distant Voices is a little bit more, I think, divisive for some folks. I think that's a more mileage may vary kind of a situation, but I think the premise is interesting, and it's definitely a deep dive into sort of Bashir's mental makeup, and it's his birthday, and he's kind of afraid of aging, and I think turns 30 in the episode, and he's struggling with that.
And I like, at least I like to think that I like the cleverness of assigning each crew member a
part of his personality.
Personality, but I think even more that I think that even people forget that this is Bashir's first posting, and I think that it's cool to see that he takes elements from his crew and incorporates it into himself, and I like to think that's kind of a cool little. I don't know if that's what they're going for, but that's what I got from it. So.
Well, you may be excited to hit Distant Voices again when I hit it into the next season for me, because it's never been one of my favorites. Down further for me, but now I'm eager to watch it to fresh eyes.
That's why we do this.
That's why we do it. Absolutely. We're filling up with see-its, and I'm gonna ask you about a couple that are usually pretty traditional.
I can also
misses.
Give you some skip-its as well. Yeah, there's lots of
see-its. I'm eager to ask you about Meridian and Fascination. They're the two that are most commonly cited as like the big misfires of season 3.
Yeah. Do
you agree with that assessment? Do you think they're both skip-its? Is there something in either one of them that makes you want to say see it?
Let's start with Meridian. I think it's a cool sci-fi concept. I just can't get on board with this love thing. It's a skip it for me.
The big problem with Meridian for me is that it tries to sell you on this idea that Dax is so ready and willing to kind of throw it all away and, go to this trans-dimensional place with this guy she just met, who I don't find particularly compelling. And I think Dax also carries with her like this additional sense of protection and in my mind, at least, maybe in my own headcanon, like there's a sense of, I don't know, like that decision doesn't necessarily seem in keeping with protecting the symbiont and keeping that going and like removing it from it. Just doesn't add up for me. So I get it. Yeah,
I do not like that episode very much. The only thing that I really do like about it, and I will say that I think it would be a cool, it's definitely a cool sci-fi setup. And I just talked about how Deep Space Nine doesn't really do that, but this one in particular is kind of cool. But I just can't get on board with just her action seems out of character, and also then the crew is like, I mean, there's some pushback obviously, but then they're okay with it. It's just it's definitely an anomaly for me. And then Fascination, big time skip it. Is that the one you asked?
Yeah, Fascination is the other big time
skip it. There's some
often
cringeworthy moments in that episode, and I find I'm laughing for the wrong reasons in that episode. So, big time skip it. Do not waste your time with watching that one.
Yeah, I've always felt like that's in my opinion, one of Deep Space Nine's weakest efforts. There's some interesting directorial choices going on. There's a lot of like long takes, one shots, like long, extended takes where the camera is just kind of like floating around from one scene to the next that I kind of like. The distinctiveness of that choice, you don't see that very often in Trek. Like the way that Avery Brooks, who directed it, has the camera. Like this is all taking place during this like big festival that they're throwing on the promenade.
Yeah.
It's like the during holiday, and so the promenade's like full of people, and in different points along the way, there are people like outside of Quarks, and there's people on the upper level, and just looking out the windows, and all kinds of stuff. The camera just kind of like moves from one thing to the next without cutting. It's kind of like the 1917 like thing in Deep Space Nine that I kind of find refreshing and different and original, but it doesn't cover for the content. I don't find it enjoyable myself.
And Troy's not even really, or Loxana Troy's not really in it much. She doesn't have much. She's affecting this, but I feel like she has barely any lines. So.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that's a fair point. Yeah. She doesn't come directly to mind. Like it comes to mind as like, oh, that's a little Loxana, really bad. And if you are a Loxana Troy fan, as Cyber Honey says, then I guess as a completionist, you would want to watch this. It is a part of her canon. But you're right. I don't think of it as an episode that really brings anything important to the table for her.
Yeah.
Unlike The Forsaken in season 1, which is another one that people are mixed on, but I think that actually does like reveal some things about Loxana's character and her makeup and things that are unique about her character. Where this one, I don't feel like it does. She's kind of a plot device. She's what allows this utter insanity to happen.
Yeah,
where these characters are paired up in bizarre. Jimmy77 says, if you like to watch DS9 characters kiss, then yeah, see it. Yeah, hard to argue with that. That is what happens. What about let's go to another easy. Curious about Explorers. I know it's easy for you.
Oh, this when I talked about favorites here, one of my favorites for sure. I like the just the father-son dynamic. I think it's there's some really deep stuff in it actually. I think it allows for the Ciscos, I will say, to be really vulnerable. And I think to this point, and maybe I forget what episode's in it, but they kind of dance around the fact that Jake, and maybe it's last season as well, but Jake doesn't want to go to Starfleet, doesn't want to follow in his father's footsteps. And if I'm in Jake's shoes, that's a tough thing for me to open up about, right? This your dad is like the just is really I don't know. It's hard to be in his shadow, and I feel like this is a good moment for them to kind of really open up to each other. And I just really love the there's an episode, I forget it, I have terrible with names, but they go on a camping trip. Jemadar in earlier season, I think, but I think this one is, to me, a way better, cooler father-son thing, to be able to also build on the premise and build on the Bajoran backstory and the history, and it's so good. I love it.
Yeah, I agree. I think if you're talking see it, skip it, like what's important, what's not, I think Explorers is as important as it gets. I think the building on Cisco's character, and we talked about it last season, the second sight, which I don't think many people would find like super successful. I think it really is a key episode with understanding Cisco's character. Right? The foundation of his character is that he's a single dad and that he's a widower, and all of the things that make him unique, that come from that place. That's such a huge component to his being, and explores a lot of that. And Cyber Honey actually mentions the subplot with Bashir, with the other doctor who he graduated with in the academy, the valedictorian, and there's that great singing drunk scene with O'Brien where he's kind of pining and breaking down. that is really good. I think it's a really well balanced episode. It's another one. Deep Space Nine's got such great B plots because characters are so good. Like they can have these little side stories that are not like the defining thing and not the big thing that's driving the episode forward, but it's given character acts, whoever it is that time, something interesting to do, and it's just kind of building the depth of that character, and I think that's a good one for Bashir.
Yeah, but
Bashir and O'Brien's friendship.
Yeah, but it feels real too. Like I think all of us has kind of experienced something to that end. Like
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so I like that.
Definitely. Yeah, that's a very successful episode. I think an important one. Jimmy77, I see your comment, and we will talk about that because that's an important point. We'll definitely touch on that at the end. Let's talk about Second Skin, which is a big Kira episode. Where do you fall on that?
It's a see it for me.
Okay.
Because I think it a lot of the times we think of the Cardassians as the bad guys, and our perspective is always through the lens of how they treated the Bajorans. And I think this kind of flips it on its head just a little bit. It changes our perspective of the Cardassians just a little bit. I think it's definitely Cardassian, and to think that that they're going this far to actually convince. It feels Cardassian in that nature, but it also it's like, okay, not all of these guys are bad. Not all of these guys are bad people, and I think it's one of those episodes that ends with maybe not such a good ending, but it's again, I think
not a happy ending.
Not a happy ending. My takeaway is that it changes my perspective on the Cardassians at this point. So big time.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think it adds a lot of texture to that whole dynamic. It three-dimensionalizes the Cardassians. I think it's easy in Star Trek to sort of lump species together and be like, oh, well, all Klingons are X and all Cardassians are Y, and kind of label them with traits that are universal. And I think Second Skin does a really nice job of broadening our view of what a Cardassian is, and that they're not all golden cotton. Like that they don't all come from same exact place and have that same view of everything. There are people who see things from a different political lens and have different opinions and would have done things differently and have different priorities. And Second Skin, I think, forces us to confront those things the same way it forces Kira to confront those things.
And I like that it plays with the Cardassians. They made some sacrifices as well. Like this family was torn apart because of what happened. Like everyone, talks about how much the Bajorans were affected and the sacrifices they had to make and things like that. But this is cool to see. The other side
I think
of the coin.
It touches on these big events, whether it's a war or an occupation. Like these things, they have consequences, and regardless of what side of the issue that you're on, people are affected, families are affected. There are widespread ripples that touch everybody, and it's I think it's successful. I think it's a really strong the non-visitor episode. Strong performance from her, a really good guest star, Cyber Honey, Jimmy77 mentioned there's a sequel. There's an episode coming a couple seasons down the road, Ties of Blood and Water, that is in play too. So it's not one of those Star Trek episodes that ends and you never kind of hear about it again. There is some follow-up to that story. Cyber Honey mentioned Second Skin as a skip it for her, and sees it as sort of a rehash or a redo of TNG's Face of the Enemy, which is on the surface they're very similar. That Face of the Enemy opens with Troy looking in a mirror and she's a Romulan. This the teaser ends with Kira waking up and she's a Cardassian. So I get that. I get the connection there for sure. What about another Kira episode and one that we have not discussed? Shakar. Towards the back end of season 3.
Yeah. It is a big time see it for me. It definitely builds on the premise. Again, it touches on the. I think it's again, they're trying to be ambitious again, but they're also trying to be real as well, saying, hey, we could easily just slip back into war and things like that. So, big time see it for me. I think it's
I like Shikar too.
Yeah, I love that it talks about, hey, I mean, we didn't go through all this to just to go back to fighting again, but it's cool, not cool. It's interesting because I think that now is like in their nature, right? It's in the nature to a Bajoran to fight against a leader or dictator if they don't agree. And they're willing to fight for what they believe in, and I think that's at the core of being a Bajoran. But also, it's really easy to fall into some negative aspects of that. So,
sure, I think it explores all those issues well, like that instinct and the conditioning that comes from the experience and the occupation.
Yeah.
But I think, like we said, the Second Skin kind of three-dimensionalizing the Cardassians. I think Shikar continues to build on this idea that the Bajorans are not a single thing. Like they do not. This is a divided group of people that do not all see the same path forward. You know, Kai Wynn has her agenda. There are others who have very different ones. Who have very different paths in mind for the Bajoran people and how they're going to move forward. So I think for all those reasons, it's successful.
It's interesting because as much as people like bag on Kai Wynn, I don't particularly like her much, but I think that's a point here. But I think both her mind is in the right spot here. They want to join the Federation, but it's also like the just the population and everyone want to do that too, but it's not ready. It's not the right time. So
right. They have issues to work out first.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Let's do another episode that kind of heavily features Kira. There's a couple. I'm just kind of running through Kira. There's a lot of Kira actually in these episodes that we haven't talked about yet. Let's talk about life support, which is a kind of equal parts Kira, equal parts Bashir kind of story with Vedic Varial's demise. Another Kai Wynn heavy episode as well.
This is such a tough one. I go back and forth on see it or skip it here. I'm not too keen on the love kind of story here. I think it's a see it because it goes into some tough places to talk about with just the medical field, and at what point is this gonna go tip the scale to what's the return on investment here? Is this as ethical really? And the other,
that's what I like about it.
And the other thing is too, that's kind of the main reason why is that ethical kind of dilemma that Bashir's faced with. Not too keen on the love stuff, but also what ends will Bajorans go to, he puts his life on the line for his people. This is that's the other reason, as well as obviously the world building and them trying to make a treaty and things like that. But those two kind of the ends that the Bajoran people will go for peace is unbelievable. Bareil specifically, I think some Bajoran leaders maybe have different motives here, but that ethical dilemma I think is one of the strongest things. So I think it's a see it. It's a see it for me. I could be talked out of it very easily, but it is a see it for me. So
yeah, we have some mixed opinion even in the chat. We have Cyberhoney and Jimmy77 both mentioning it as sort of in the bottom of the pack for them for the season. Rob is here and says it's such an underrated episode. Welcome, Rob. Good to see you as always.
I will say that, Rob, we led off with civil defense, and you have actually Bill to thank for that. I know he's a big civil defense guy as well. So
yes, classic.
Yeah.
And I think we've spoken before, Rob, in some conversation or other about the strength of of life support. I'm with you. I like life support, but I also acknowledge that it's a bit of a divisive episode. I think
big time.
It's one that people are hot and cold on. Let's do Quark. We have the House of Quark and Profit Motive. Let's kind of pair them up. I think they're very different episodes, but they're sort of the two. Actually, there's three. There's House of Quark, Profit Motive, and Family Business are the big, heavy Quark ones. One in each column here.
Yeah.
Let's bounce from those three as we're kind of coming up on an hour with a few episodes to go. Where do you sort of sit on those three? House of Quark first.
Let's start with House of Quark. I really did love this episode. I didn't expect to. I think it's a good pairing. It's really, I think they're both I like both species are really really black and white, maybe oil and water here, but I really do like that episode. I think there's some great comedic elements in it as well. Just great all around episode. What are your thoughts?
I like House of Quark. I think it's a lot of fun. There's a lot of good humor in it. I love Quark handing out pads and taking the Klingons all through like tax code and all the inner financial workings of these contracts and stuff. I think there's a lot of really funny stuff there. But I think the yin yangness of characters like Quark and Grilka and the Klingons and the Ferengi is a really cool way to explore those two societies, those two species that are so different. Yeah. Yet both so kind of extreme in their camps. I think it's a lot of fun. I think it's my favorite of those three episodes for my money. What about Profit Motive?
Skip
it. Okay.
Yes. Anytime the Negus comes, I don't know if I like it. And it's I don't know. I could maybe be talked into it, but there's some Ferengi stuff that I don't really enjoy. This might be one of them. I could maybe get talked into it, but yeah, and I think it's I don't know. Am I way off here?
No, I don't think it's not one of my favorites.
Yeah.
It's got the flip version of the Rules of Acquisition, the Profits influenced Zek version of them, which kind of is an interesting way to explore the Ferengi society, to kind of make them self-reflect and look at pushing the other way on these core issues. But I don't find it. It's not a favorite. I don't think it's
okay.
Super fun. I don't find it as funny as some other things that come in other Quark episodes. Yeah. And I agree with you. I think the Zek stuff, the Grand Nagus stuff, is very hit and miss.
Yeah.
For me.
I think the Rules of Acquisition is such a core thing. I don't know how they could change that, and I just knew that going in. So I was like, I don't know. Family Business, I like a little bit more. I like the it's kind of a little bit of social commentary here, but it pushes the boundary on Ferengi culture a little bit. I like the like how they bicker, and there's some good dynamic there. There's some just good moments in there as well for Family Business. So I would say see it for me.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, it definitely expands on family dynamics, Quark and Rom, and Ishka, and that all comes back. That's a running theme.
Moogie.
It definitely tees up a lot of things that are coming down the road. Moogie, yeah. There's a lot more to come in that storyline. That's definitely like a little mini series within Deep Space Nine. This family drama with Quark and company.
And there was an episode previously where there was another female that was disguised as a male doing business as well. So I think it's
the gender role stuff.
You need this to kind of keep the arc moving, I think.
Yeah, I think that's fair. It's an important cog in the storyline. If you're not going to throw the entire Ferengi thing out,
exactly,
then you probably need Family Business. I don't think you need Profit Motive. I don't think that carries the same level of weight later on in the show that family business does. So that's a good point. I would agree with that. Let's see. What about a big Odo / Nog story, which is Heart of Stone, with their sort of parallel big confessions.
Yeah.
That they both make. What do you think of that one?
I love this episode. I really do. It's kind of a simple kind of setup, kind of a way mission thing with kind of a fun twist at the end. But I think both parallel, these characters are pressured into admitting something that is going to really shift that character moving forward. In Heart of Stone, we learned that Odo has a thing for Kira, and Nog is pressured into, which I think I like a little bit more. He wants to go into Starfleet, and I think there's some cool things with Cisco pressuring him as well, and also just he doesn't want to end up like his dad, like this brilliant tinkerer, but working this dead end job. He wants to better himself, and that's, to me, such a Star Trek thing, and that's such a Starfleet thing, and such a Federation thing that I just cannot. This is a see it for me, big time.
Yeah, I think Cyber Hunting, it was first announced that Aaron Eisenberg passed away. That episode is kind of what immediately came to mind. And I kind of agree with that. I think this is such a major turning point for that character in the way we see Nog and his arc. I think that's the definite strong point here. I think the Odo stuff is important too. I think it carries a little less weight because of the twist, kind of similar to the Search Part 2. There's the rug pulled out from under you.
Yeah.
The confession and the things that we just went through don't carry as much weight. I get that it forces Odo to acknowledge it to himself and admit it and speak it out loud, like he does have to do that. And to us, it tells the audience, it confirms stuff that we, I think, already suspected, but makes him confess it to us. Like you said, he confesses it to us. And I think it also puts into focus this thing that comes later in the Dice cast, which we already talked about, where when he's talking to Garrick about wanting to go home and what's keeping him on Deep Space Nine and in his current dynamic, and how much weight Kira kind of holds in that situation. So it is important, but I think the Nog stuff is what really I gravitate toward in Heart of Stone for all the reasons you said.
Yeah.
Let's knock out another two. There's a twosome here that I think works pretty well as a pair, which is two Dax episodes, Equilibrium and Facets, two Trill-heavy mythology kinds of stories with previous hosts being explored and the whole Trill thing.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Equilibrium. I think it's to see it just because the backstory of the Trill stuff, and then what was the Facets, right?
Facets,
yeah.
Second to last episode with the prior hosts being,
and then definitely
broad polite.
Definitely see it for me. I think it gives the characters some cool things to do, different characters to play. I like that we finally get some maybe closure on kind of Jadzia's kind of backstory and how she got the symbiont. Because I think that at that point we didn't really, there was a mystery of why we didn't, we knew that she had washed out, but she somehow got back in. I don't know if I like the that he's in love with her. I'm not in love with that kind of storyline, but I like to see past hosts and things like that. So I'll say see it. I'll be generous in that way.
Yeah, now I think these Trill ideas are important in Discovery Season 3, so if you're on board with Star Trek Discovery,
big time.
And the stuff that the Zira character brings to the forefront, I think episodes like Equilibrium and Facets are maybe important homework for teeing up with what comes there, with the connection to past hosts and that it's that there are some interesting dynamics that can be at play with our ability to, or the current host's ability to interact with past hosts. That those things are possible through Trill tradition and things that they can unlock through this way or that. So it I think clarifies some things that come in episodes like Forget Me Not.
Yeah.
In Discovery season 3.
Yeah, and I like that. It adds wrinkles to just Trill in general. Like, it's not just you get the symbiont and that's it. No, there's rituals that you got to do. There's sometimes health issues that have to be resolved. You got to go back to it's not as easy as just a snap of a finger and a slice of a medical device and everything's just hunky dory. I like that we explore that as well.
All true.
Yeah.
Let's do the Abandoned. That's kind of sticking out like a sore thumb. It's just like a random standalone episode that I can't pair with anything else. So, what do you think?
The Abandoned. Sorry, I'm just looking over the episode. Kind of.
Odo and the young.
Yeah. They find him in in the cargo bay, and they learn some. I say see it. I think there's some. Again, this is some world building as far as with the Jemadar. There's some good stuff in that way. We kind of find out a little bit more about them. And I like that their heart is in the right place. Where we're going to try to help these people. They're really Federation, very Star Trek approach to try to help and guide them to a better path. I could be maybe talked out of it, but I think as far as sticking to how I see it or skip it, if there's an element in there in this episode where I think, this we need this is essential viewing, then this is a see it. So.
Yeah, no, I think it's an important piece to locking in just how difficult this Dominion problem is going to be. This young Jemadar is not somebody that is easy to. It's not as simple as you can't condition. It's not going to come easy to sort of make change happen with the current situation. It's just not. It's not going to come easy. Odo tries his best. But it's just not in the cards, and I think that really does raise the stakes and clarifies how difficult this path forward is going to be with the Jemadar and the Dominion. And it's an interesting, Cyber Honey mentioned Forgotten, which is season 5 down the road, but kind of the Odo Daddy kind of episodes with Odo sort of taking on this parental sort of role. Is I'm guessing that's why you're pairing those two together, Cyber Honey. But that's it's definitely I think a good strong Odo episode. But I wouldn't say it's classic. I don't think it's like an all-time great or anything like that. No. Good workman-like, middle of the road kind of episode. What about Defiant? That's another one that I can't pair necessarily. That's the Thomas Riker.
I'm skipping it. I did not like this episode. I don't buy that Kira would just fall in love, or not fall in love, but be attracted to him so quickly. I'm not. I don't know. It doesn't. I mean, it kind of does. It builds off of this the Badlands being just a problem. For Cisco and the Federation. I don't buy that that the Defiant gets taken so easily, and that Kira gets taken so easily. It's just I don't like it. So it's a skip it for me.
Yeah, I can respect that. I have a hard time arguing with the convenience of Kira's quick attraction to Riker. Yeah, I think that's an easy sort of, maybe even lazy play on the Riker ladies man thing from TNG. I don't know. I agree with all that. I also I think the Defiant is sort of stripped away a little too easily. But what I like about that episode, what keeps me there and keeps me in thumbs up camp, is the Cisco Ducat dynamic in that Cardassian control room.
They work together.
That big control center. They're having to work together, but kind of begrudgingly, and that there's a lot of they're doing it and they're trying their best, but there's a lot of hard, built-in resentment from Ducat towards Cisco and towards the Federation. The bruised feelings and egos are clearly on display.
There's some good lines in that, some writing where they talk about missing kids' birthdays and things like that, and their kids' perspective on each other. I do like that. That's tough. But isn't it Cure with Belial? Like it's just I don't know. I can't get past it. Yeah.
Yes, that's actually a good point. Yeah. I totally get that. I think the factor there to allow it to happen. Lots of icy kinds of choices to allow it to happen. Cyber Honey suggests that Defiant can be compared to civil defense because of Ducat and his heavy role. You are correct. Yeah. They're close in proximity and they both heavily feature Ducat. That is true. We have 3 left. I'm going to pair Destiny and 3 Glass together as heavy Cisco kinds of episodes. Through the Looking Glass is Mirror Universe. I have a feeling I know what you'll say. Destiny is a whole different animal, but I think I'm comfortable pairing them as Avery Brooks.
Whoops. I think Destiny's a C. That's like the comment, right? And
that's the comment.
I think. I like that because it plays with kind of our perspective and our expectations of not just the emissary side of Cisco, but also just how the Bajorans like interpret their things and things like that. It's perspective. It's like, oh, okay, well we thought this because they thought this because of the 3 snakes or whatever was the Cardassians, right? And so that their perspective can be swayed from past events. So that's it's kind of hard to, I don't know if I'm making.
Yeah,
sense,
no, you're right. Yeah, I think
it's
a good exploration of the Bajoran prophecy idea and being guided by the, being led by like religious indicators in old texts, basically, and how easily you might misconstrued those messages and those ideas, and that you're like you said, your current perspective, things that you have in your mind now, might sway the way you read into some of these things, and run off with whatever message that might be there. And it's a really strong, I think, exploration of Cisco's comfort level with this whole thing, being the emissary and having this role with Bajorans. He's kind of thrust into this position where he has to, have discussions about it. He kind of runs from it up to this point and doesn't have any comfort level talking about that role. And this, I think, kind of forces his hand and makes him confront some of those things. Yeah. So I think it's important on that front. What about Through the Looking Glass?
It's a tough one. I could go either way on this, but I'm going to try to stick to my guns here and say skip it. I'm not very big on the Mirror Universe at this point. The kidnapping of Cisco just seems too casual, too convenient. The tough thing is I'm not really invested in what happens in this side of the Mirror Universe. The only saving grace for this episode is that we get to see some... I kind of like the exploration of him having to deal with his wife, see his wife again, and things like that. And I don't know if we're talking about. I think his wife seems like the same she would be in if she was in our universe, Prime universe. So, and it's tough, but I do like some of that. But I've just never been a Mirror Universe fan, so I don't necessarily. This might be really harsh, but I don't really care about this side of this side of the or this universe. When there's so much already going on in the Prime universe, why spend 45 minutes back in this place? So, sorry, I'm not a big fan.
No,
Yeah,
I totally hear that, and you're not alone. And I have mixed feelings myself. I think Through the Looking Glass is the most difficult one for me to kind of pin down. I think some of the Mirror Universe stuff that comes later than this, I have more clearly negative feelings for. I really like Crossover from last season. I think that's a strong episode. With Mirror Universe being brought back, I think they do some fun things there. Yeah. Less campy and more dark and menacing, kind of like Mirror Mirror was. But this one, the strength of this one is what you kind of said, forcing Cisco to come face to face with his dead wife and have that second chance. And actually, there's dialogue in Discovery season 1 after Discovery comes back from the Mirror Universe at the end of the season with Sarek and Admiral Cornwell. Talking about needing to keep the Mirror Universe kind of under wraps because of these kinds of things, like especially after a war where there's people dead all over the place and people lost relatives and family and friends. The temptation to jump universes to see an alternate version of somebody that you love and that's no longer here would be too strong and too tempting for people to play around with. And this is exactly what Cisco's kind of forced into. I mean, he's not choosing to go do this, but he's put in this position where he has to see another version of a lost loved one. Mm-hmm. So I think those ideas are interesting. I like that way of exploring the Mirror Universe in a fresh way. It's not just campy, mustache twirling, goatee twirling versions of us that are evil.
Yeah.
I do appreciate that, but I agree with you in the sense that by this point, I'm not in love with it anymore. Like I feel like the lust is kind of off of it. The shine's off the Mirror Universe by this point. So I don't know where I would fall on it. I'm kind of curious to get to it and watch it again fresh when I hit season 3 myself.
Yeah.
So I respect your skip it for sure, but I also I see why somebody would be a fan. Mm-hmm. And our last one is the season finale, The Adversary, which
I've already put to see it.
See it?
Yeah, The Adversary. One of the things that I love most about it is it really plays on on how the founders can really emulate. They're way better than Odo in emulating people, and I think that spreads distrust throughout the quadrant, right? We see it in the next season where you got to start a meeting with cutting and showing blood and things like that. So I think it really adds a element of mystery to just people you think you know, right? You trust these people, and then they end up being not that. So it feels big. I think this episode a changeling harms another, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Kills.
I mean, I don't know if he means to kill him, but he does. So I think that's a big ripple effect as well. But I think the bigger ripple is the distrust that leaks into the next season. So I think it's definitely a big see it for me.
Yeah, I love The Adversary. I see AKA, or I keep calling you AKA Mammal Cyber on me. Old Periscope high of habits. The Adversary, skip it for her. Yeah, I mean, I get it. It's very distinctive with its sort of sweaty action, retake the ship kind of a situation.
Yeah.
Paranoia. Its tones are very distinctive, and if it's not for you, it's not going to work. Mm-hmm. But I do like it. It kind of fits in. Watched There Is a Tide from Discovery at the end of season 3, and I feel like this is kind of a similar kind of thing with retaking the ship and the sort of, I don't know, like there's that sort of subgenre of Star Trek episode with crewmen like crawling through Jeffries tubes with phaser rifles and like subterfuge and trying to trick the bad guy. Mm-hmm. And then I like those kinds of episodes, so it's for me for sure.
Yeah.
And yeah, you're right. It's clearly it tees up a lot of what's coming with how pervasive the Dominion are and how quickly they can integrate themselves with these changelings and cause chaos without you even really knowing it until it's too late. And there's a lot of things that come later on from that idea, and that's a major jumping off point. That in the season 4, I think there are episodes in season 4 that really take essential ideas from the adversary and sprint with them forward. So, I think it's a big key episode. Sisko's promoted to captain. He is officially Captain Sisko in that.
Good moments there.
Yes. So you have just 5 skippets, which is by far, I think, the lowest percentage of skippets that you've done so far with these Deep Space Nine skippets. And I think we did a TOS 1 or 2 as well.
Yeah, we did.
By far the lowest ratio of skippets,
I think.
So far.
And I think, unfortunately, spoiler alert, this is only going to become a theme because I think the more serialized the show gets, the harder it's going to get to see those skippets on there because, again, just back to my, and maybe we can kind of wrap up with this. The way that this is set up, again, is if there's an element in there that I think is essential for the story, even if it's a middle-of-the-road episode, I say it to see it. So I think just as we go forward, it's going to be a lot more see it's. So, but at the end of the day, I think maybe Cyber Honey or someone mentioned, this is just my take. This is what I think. It's not a mandatory thing. Your mileage may vary. There's maybe some episodes where you don't agree with. There's maybe some episodes that we don't agree with. But that is the beauty of watching Star Trek. So, again, at the end of the day, I am putting together an essential kind of viewing kind of schedule map. But at the end of the day, I think the best way to do it is watch it all. So.
Yeah, no, Jimmy 77 went, going back a little bit. I wanted to this. Honestly, though, you have to watch every episode of Star Trek at least once. Different people have different tastes.
Exactly.
Yes, some episodes that are mostly panned by most fans, I sometimes enjoy, like Guilty Pleasure. Yes, all of that is true, and I echo all of that. I think, and I would actually go a step further and say everybody give episodes more than one chance because as somebody who's watched these things over and over and over again across different phases of my own life, I can just speaking for myself. There are episodes that Rob mentioned it himself actually in chat talking about Heart of Stone. As a teenager, didn't really resonate with him, but now as an adult, having a little bit more perspective on life, being older, both the Odo and the Nog developments, those big confessions, are play very differently when you're 30 as opposed to 15 maybe. Like there's definitely a difference there in how you react to these things and how these stories resonate with you. So, continue to go back to them. Don't write them off. Like keep going back, and different episodes will play differently for you at different points in your life, and that's the fun of having something like this that you can like really throw yourself into and keep going back to, especially when there's so much of it. Like you can continuously go back, and it's been a while since the last time you saw it, and you inevitably experience new things in life, and at that point change your perspective. So I think watch it all is always the best avenue. But like Dan said, I think this is just a avenue to take to sort of put these episodes in perspective, at least for this rewatch and this time around. Like what felt important and what felt like it really brought something to the table that felt essential and feels like it's going to be important moving forward. It's just one way to do it. It's a different spin on the 3 stars, 4 stars, 5 stars kind of idea, or the letter grade that I do usually, or the sheer thumbs up, thumbs down. There's so many ways you can do it. This one mechanism. Yeah. And I think it was Rob. I don't know. Maybe it was somebody else. I don't know. Somebody asked the essential question, which you knew was coming. What's the best? Or that's a different question. What's best and what's your favorite episode of season 3? Both. Like how would you differentiate that question?
Best is. I think the best is past tense.
Okay.
Favorite. is probably between Explorers and Civil Defense. Those two right now. I would say maybe Explorers is my favorite. then Civil Defense. If I really got to buckle down and say it, but yeah, season 3 as a whole is to me very strong. I think one of the best season 3s probably out there. You know, it's up there with TNG maybe, and some other season 3s obviously, but yeah, some really good episodes, some classics, maybe some missteps, but and somewhere in the middle. So yeah,
not a lot of. I think like your skip-its kind of indicate. I don't think there are a lot of real misfires. I think when I look at that list, Meridian and Fascination both stand out to me as like the big, real whiffs, like real big swings and misses.
Yeah.
For me, they're the two that really stand out as whoa. They really. They swung and missed. But other than that, I think all of these episodes carry some level of value. That, you know, there's certainly a lot of variance between something like Improbable Cause and, say, Equilibrium. Like, there's a difference there as far as, like, heft and overall quality, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But Equilibrium is no less, you know, worth attention.
Yeah. Sorry this went a little long, guys, but I really do like doing this. I like having that conversation of putting my opinion on an episode out there and having you guys challenge it or seeing your guys' perspective on the episodes. I think that's at the core. This is really, like Bill mentioned, like the rankings. It's the same kind of process and same kind of thing. We're trying to get to, how do we think about these episodes? Let's change our perspectives. Let's look at these episodes a little bit differently, in a different light. So I really do enjoy these quite a bit.
Yeah, me too. I think this is a cool way to look at them. I like kind of skipping around and not going in chronological order and just kind of bouncing around, having like just poke and prod around whatever episodes kind of come to mind, pairing up characters and things like that. Yeah. I like the approach. I like the way we did it, and it was a lot of fun. So.
Yeah. I look forward to doing season 4 as well. So definitely be thinking about that, guys. And if you guys are listening to it after the fact or listening to it on the podcast feed, definitely come over to Twitter or our Discord server and let us know which ones, if there's an episode that you don't agree with, if there's one that you agree with, or if you want to send me the whole list even, that's fine too. We just want to hear from you guys. So.
Yeah, couldn't echo that more. Yeah. We love to hear the feedback. We want to hear what your guys' favorite episodes of season 3 are. Top 5s, top 10s, rankings of the full season, whatever you want to do. We are here for all of it. All the feedback. We'll kind of close with discussion. It doesn't have to stop here. Twitter, obviously, is a good place to find us. But also, if you are inclined to stretch yourself a little bit, if you haven't gotten into the whole Discord thing yet, we do have a Discord server for Trek Live with a nice little community of folks who are positive and pleasant and open-minded and are not negative Nancy's about Trek, new, old, in the middle. We have channels there where people talk about what they're watching currently, books they're reading, just general.
Those are random.
General
you
chat.
Can talk about anything, you know. It's just, all good stuff.
But it connects you with other fans. We also have what we call Trek After Dark hangouts every so often. We should be having another one pretty soon, where it's very casual. We have the opportunity to connect with people on video chat or on voice chat or just typing in a big setting where we just kind of hang out casually. Rob's been there for them, who's in the chat now. We'll group watch episodes. We'll play trivia. We'll just kind of chat and get to know each other.
Yeah.
So if you're interested in joining that, if you want a tutorial on what Discord is and how it works and what the ins and outs are, you can DM me on Twitter at TrekFan4387. I'd be happy to invitation, and everyone's welcome.
Yep. Okay. Yeah, we'll be back next week to talk about more Trek. That being said, thanks for watching, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.